Okay, thanks, Matt, and welcome to FLDC 2025. I'm glad to see the tables are full today, and it is, honestly, it's a distinct honor and privilege to serve as the chair at this year's FLDC. I've been coming for over 20 years, and it's fun because this is the first event, if I'm not mistaken, the first event with the merger of IFA and Franchise Update Media, and that'll be important in a minute. I'll share what that means to me. But you know, a lot of people ask me all the time, why is it important to come to FLDC, especially since being nominated as the chair earlier this year? Why go to FLDC? And I scribbled 3 words on a note card back at our meeting at MUFC earlier this year, and it said, invest in you. And I believe in that. Matt suggested that. This is a week for us to step back and invest in ourselves. We talk to franchisees all the time. Invest in yourself, set goals, stretch yourself, get outside your 4 walls. And that's what we're doing this week, is stepping back, stepping outside our 4 walls and investing in ourselves just for a few days, then we'll get back to business, right? So very important. Also, the industry is evolving quickly. You know, when I started in this industry, the internet was blowing things up, changing the game, right? And now we're talking about AI. 2 years ago, we scratched the surface on AI. Last year, a little bit more. This year, that's all I heard about yesterday. Whether it was at the coffee break or in every session, it was about AI and how that's changing the game. So you need to be here to understand that, to evolve, and to use that in your day-to-day, right? So very important. The industry is evolving. And more importantly, and I've thought about this for many years about this industry, we are better together. We challenge each other. There are competitors in this room sitting at the same table, but sharing best practices, listening to each other, challenging each other. That just doesn't happen in a lot of industries. So we learn from each other, we grow, we make each other better. You know, I started in franchising 2003 IFA event, San Antonio, Texas. Anybody there with me? Gary and Therese were there. Anybody else? That's not a lot of hands, I'm concerned. Patty was there. So, you know, in 03, I was coming off a 13-year career at Hallmark Cards, not a franchise. We actually called it, our legal counsel called it the F word. We were a license agreement at Hallmark, and anytime we got close to the edge, he said, we're getting, you know, it's the F word, right? So I didn't even know what that meant at the time. But in 03 San Antonio, a week before the conference, President's Day weekend in February, I joined Dunkin' Brands. Tony Padullo, a younger Tony Padullo, hired me over, we were all younger then, hired me over to Dunkin', and it was my first week on the job. I didn't even know my team. I went to San Antonio, I was delayed. I missed the first-timers reception. There was 27 and a half inches of snow in Boston that weekend. Look it up. Excuse me, I remember it like it was yesterday. My 2 sons were 7 years old and 5 years old. I had more hair. It was just a different day. It was a different day. But Tony took a chance on me. I came over from Hallmark, non-food, non-franchise, the F word, remember? But I had been around small business all my life. My parents owned a catering business. I worked at my uncle's sporting goods store at age 14. There were probably some labor issues there, but for $2 an hour, sounding like an old guy now. But he took a chance on me, he and Don LaRose, who had worked with me at Hallmark. But I left Hallmark the week before the conference. I finally made it to San Antonio. I left Jackie Chamberlain. Jackie was my market development manager in Boston at Hallmark for the last 2 years of my career there. Jackie's here this week, first timer at FLDC, 2 years with Hand and Stone, her first experience in franchising. She asked me about it. I said, come on in, the water is fine. So Jackie is here this week, makes it a special week for me. I hadn't met Patty Halpin yet. Patty was there. I missed the introduction period because of the snowstorm, but I met Patty there. Patty and I have been great friends for the last 22 years, and she's in the room today as well. She was my first introduction to Hallmark and first introduction to franchising. She's now with European Wax. But what happened later that afternoon, it was a standing room only. I forget who the speaker was, but it was a standing room only event. I stood in the back in the corner, not knowing anybody or not knowing anything about this industry. No one, nothing. But I was surrounded by, and I didn't know it at the time, I was surrounded by a franchising royalty. Russ, see if these names ring a bell. Russ Frith was the chairman. Steve Siegel was there, who was a Dunkin' franchisee at the time. Sid Feltenstein, this is royalty for those of you that don't know. You can look it up. Doc Cohen was there. Rocco was still at Krispy Kreme in Philadelphia. And Bob Gappa did a session on franchise sales. I was at the edge of my seat, because remember, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anything, but I was at the edge of my seat. But I made a promise to myself that day. I said, you know, this is kind of cool. Again, franchise royalty was crossing the stage. And I set a goal for myself that day that I was going to be on stage one day at an IFA event, walk across, have slides, a clicker, all of those things that now, it took some time, but here we are, right? Here we are. We made it, because the industry brought me in. It brought me into this family, and I've been grateful to Tony and Don ever since, but it does take time. But the industry takes care of itself. We tell franchisees all the time, you know, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. The same can be true about us, right? We're in this business, whether we like it or not, for ourselves, but look around, not by ourselves. You've got great resources here today. All week, take advantage of those resources. You're not alone. We all have headwinds. We all have challenges. We all have franchisees, right? So take advantage of not being by yourself. And again, we make each other better. We make each other better. Tony is here this week, as I mentioned. Jackie is here this week. People in my life over the past 22 years. Patty is here, even Doc. I heard Doc is here. So he's here, coming off of that stage all those many years ago. And remember that 7-year-old I mentioned, my oldest son? He's in the room. He's in the room. He is the next generation of franchise leaders. Matthew is here with us this week. He's a first-timer, starting his CFB journey. He just took a job he's been at FBC for Wingstop the last 3 years. We're moving him to Dallas in a couple of weeks. He is the next generation of franchise leaders, serving as a senior manager of operations for Wingstop International. Wingstop's hot, right? They're the darlings of the industry right now. You need to talk to him. So he's here today too. And his brother, Brad, that 5-year-old, he's taller than both of us now. He's in Boston working for Crispy Crunchy, not a franchise, it's a license agreement, but he doesn't know about the F word just yet. But we'll get him. So what's important, it's a funny story about Matt too. When we met the other night when he got into town, he said, I think I made a mistake. He said, I signed up for the CEO Summit. And they called me, Sharon called me this week and said, I don't know if this is our problem or you made a mistake or we made a mistake, and if you need an exception, let us know. You know, your father's the chairman of the conference, but you're signed up for the CEO Summit. He said, no, that was my mistake, get me out of there. But that could be his story 22 years from now when he attends a CEO Summit legitimately and shares his story about franchising. So I look forward to that day. So your to-do list this week, today and tomorrow, is to be here. Be here, be present, take it all in, take advantage of everything that's going on. I may have missed one or two, I apologize, Therese, I may have missed one or two FLDCs over the past 22 years, and there was always an empty feeling when I missed. I felt like I missed preventative maintenance on my fryer or my HVAC system or my lawnmower. It just was an empty feeling not being here, like I missed out on something. Big time FOMO that I missed out. I didn't grow that year as much as I would have liked. So be here, be engaged as well. We talk about learning, listening, sharing. Sharing is very important. I hear that from people sometimes is like, I didn't get anything out of that session. And my quick response is, what did you give to that session? You were in the room with people that don't know this stuff. Share with them your experiences. That's what makes this conference great. So be here, be engaged, take advantage of it all of it. Your breakouts, your keynote speaker, take back the information they give you to your brands, and make your, make your impact with it. I also want you to take a time to welcome those first-timers, especially if there's someone in the back of the room during one of the standing room only sessions that knows nobody and knows no thing. Take your time, reach out a hand, bring them into this family. So I want you to welcome first-timers and that next generation of franchise leaders. It was about 2 years ago at IFA, I looked around and said, A, I'm getting old, and B, there is a beautiful generation of leadership, franchise leadership professionals coming through the pipeline here. They bring energy, they bring different ideas, they bring a different perspective. They're not afraid of AI, they're not afraid of anything, really. So welcome them, bring them into the family. And last but not least, thank a sponsor. Actually, I challenge you to hug a sponsor. I want you to hug a sponsor. Find them, we're gonna share some videos from each of them. Hug a sponsor this week. Jamie, that's you. Let's hug a sponsor this week. Thank them, because without them, none of this happens as well as it does. The program isn't as robust as it is. So take your time and do that.